When that tongue gets lit and hell throws fuel on the speech, it will send sparks throughout the rest of your life.
Dr. Tony Evans talks about the potentially destructive power of the things we say.
Because see, there's dynamite in your dentures, which is why you gotta watch your mouth.
This is The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans, author, speaker, senior pastor of Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship in Dallas, Texas, and president of the Urban Alternative. Dr. Evans says sometimes being tongue-tied is the best thing that could happen to you. Let's join him as he takes us to the book of James for a look at the power and the danger in the words that we choose.
Dynamite is very powerful. It can help you and make life better. It can hurt you and ruin your life. You and I have dynamite, and it's in your dentures. Your greatest enemy is not in your home. Your greatest enemy is not on your job. Your greatest enemy is in your mouth. The Apostle James takes the first 12 verses of his epistle to give the most extensive statement in the Bible on the tongue, or the speech, or the use of words, or what you do with your mouth. You will discover, starting today, it is no small thing. He introduces his discussion by saying, "Let not many of you become teachers, my brethren," talking to Christians, so he's talking to us, "knowing that as such we will incur a stricter judgment." A teacher speaks. He speaks with his mouth. There were many in the church who wanted to speak on behalf of God. He says, if you're going to talk on behalf of God, you better watch what you're saying. Because what you say and what God says better be the same thing, because you will incur a greater judgment. You will have higher accountability because you brought me into the conversation. So if you're going to bring me up, make sure you straighten what you're saying. Because if you want to speak for me, about me, then you better make sure it's true to me, for you will receive the stricter judgment. That leads him to make 3 points that I want to leave with you today from James chapter 3 about the dynamite in your dentures. How powerful is your tongue? What can it do? What can it not do? And why does it even matter? The first thing that he wants you to know is that your mouth has the power to direct the rest of your life. Your mouth has the power to direct the rest of your life. Verse 2, "For we all stumble in many ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able to bridle the whole body as well." You're trying to fix this problem in your life, fix this problem in your life, fix that problem in your life. You got all these issues going on in your life because we all stumble in many ways. But then he says, but if I can ever get your tongue right, this one thing, you will be able to deal with all the other things you're tripping over. He says, give me your lips and I'll run your life. Give me your lips, give me your mouth, and you will bridle, bring under control the rest of you. He goes on to the second point. Not only is there power in your mouth to direct your life, there's power in your mouth to do damage to your life. Verse 5, "So the tongue is a small part of the body, and yet it boasts great things. See how great a forest is set aflame by such a small fire. And the tongue is a fire, the very world of iniquity. The tongue is set among our members as that which defiles the entire body, and sets on fire the course of our lives, and is set on fire by hell." There's some deep stuff. He says, your tongue is a match that starts fires. You see these big fires raging in some of the big parks or some of the big land masses, and you see these big fires, and a lot of times it's discovered that the fire got started by something small, by a little match, a little fire that was unleft addressed, a spark. How could something so little create this much mess? Have you ever lit a fire in your life with just a word, a sentence, a phrase, a paragraph? It wasn't even a book. You just said one word, and now we want to get a divorce because one word turned into a forest fire. You forgot where the match was because now the whole forest is on fire. Job 19, verse 2, Job says of his friends who were talking to him, he said, your words are ripping me apart. Your words, and these were his friends. His word even his enemies. He says, your words are unraveling me, are tearing me apart. He says that the tongue can wipe out a whole bunch of stuff. It was October the 8th, 1871, when Mrs. O'Leary's cow in Chicago accidentally knocked over the lantern. The lantern knocked over by Mrs. O'Leary's cow set the barn on fire. The barn on fire spread. That led to the fire of Chicago in 1871 when 100,000 people were homeless, 7,500 buildings were destroyed, 300 people died because a cow knocked over a lantern. That a little lantern ran crazy through a city. You have one black person to say the wrong word to one white person, or one white person to say the wrong word to one black person, or one Hispanic person say the wrong word to a policeman, or the policeman say the wrong word to somebody else, and you can wind up with a race riot because all you got is a match. But now folk are coming from everywhere, all in the streets, and buildings are burning, and chaos is erupting, all because of a word, one sentence, one phraseology. And all of a sudden, there's cultural chaos because of the tongue. The president says, we're going to war. That's only one sentence. Oh, but that one sentence can cost lives, can split families, can bring disaster. It's only a phrase, but there's a lot of dynamite in those dentures. Why can words do all that? Why? Can we start with one little problem and one little phrase cause us not to speak to each other for years? Cause us to downright wind up hating each other, whether it's family or races or whatever it happens to be. How can my mouth do that much damage? He tells you. He said, because your tongue is a fire, the very world, verse 6, of iniquity. The tongue is set among our members, our body parts, as that which defiles the entire body and sets on fire the course of our life and is set on fire by hell. So when you speak, hell is looking for an opportunity to take a spark and create a fire. It's set on fire by hell. And trust me, hell has a lot of fire to go around. Hell's going to reach in and dump some fuel on the fire, so now it becomes bigger than you ever imagined and that you started with. So your speech is not just your speech is your speech helped by hell. So hell will help your speech. And watch this, it sets in motion the course of your life. Wait a minute now. I thought you were talking about my tongue. I am, and he is, but he's saying there is an attachment of your tongue to the rest of your life. The word course means a wheel, a wheel. So picture the wheel as your life. It's a circular wheel. Inside the wheel are spokes. Spokes are the various parts of your life, like bicycle spokes on a wheel. So the wheel is your life. You've got these spokes coming up in your life that deal with the different elements of your life. Your work life, your family life, your financial life. You got all these spokes. A wheel turns. You've seen wheels turning in circle with fire coming out of it. And the wheels going real fast in a circus or something else, and the spokes are coming out. He says that your tongue spins the wheel. The wheel is your life. The spokes in the wheel are the parts of the circle of your life. And he says, when that tongue gets lit and hell throws fuel on the speech, it will send sparks throughout the rest of your life. That's why when one thing goes wrong, it begins to affect other things because it's spinning, but the spokes are attached. And because the spokes are attached to the wheel, when hell gets the wheel going, it can infiltrate all the spokes so that you wonder why this is wrong, that is wrong, this is wrong, because it's attached to the wheel. The wheel is your life. Hell is exacerbating the wheel that have been struck when you lit the match with your tongue. Because see, there's dynamite in your dentures, which is why you gotta watch your mouth.
Dr. Evans will come back in a moment with more about how to keep that dynamite from exploding. First, I want to let you know that his brand new book is here at last, just in time to go along with our current teaching series. It's called Watch Your Mouth, a practical look at ways to tame your tongue. As we're learning, the things we say can sometimes be as destructive as dynamite. But our words also have the power to bring blessing, encouragement, and healing to the people around us. This book will teach you the lesson that every superhero has to learn, to use your power for good. This life-changing book was just released yesterday, but you can get it today as our gift to you when you come alongside The Alternative and support Tony's ministry with a contribution of any amount. This is a limited-time offer, so be sure to visit us at tonyevans.org right away and make the arrangements. Or call our 24-hour resource request line at 1-800-800-3222. I'll have that information again for you later on, but right now here's Dr. Evans with more of today's message.
But he gives you another illustration, verse 7. For every species of beasts and birds, of reptiles and creatures of the sea is tamed and has been tamed by the human race. But no one can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil and full of deadly poison. He's talking about the damage that the tongue can do. You've been to the circus, and you know what it's like to see tamed animals. It's amazing what men can do with animals. Whoever thought a man could boss a lion around? Whop, do the whip, lion go jump up and sit down. Lion could tear that man apart, but it's been tamed. Whoever thought you could tell a tiger what to do? Tiger goes up and sits down or runs around or jumps through hoops because a man tamed it. He says, you can do this with animals. But he said, let me tell you about the tongue. No man can tame it. How many times have you tried to tame your kids' tongues? How many times did your mother try to tame your tongue? So here's what we did, because I did it too, so I know what I'm talking about. Here's what we did. They threatened us with a belt. So fear would grip us, so we would pretend like the lion to tame our tongue. But then we'd walk off to our room. You blanket. See, because it wasn't tamed. It just pretended to be tamed until the opportunity. We even talk to other people or talk to ourselves. When the right time, I'm going to tell them what I think. I'm going to tell them what I feel about it. I'm going to tell them. He says, No man can tame the tongue. Why? Because it is full of poison. Romans chapter 3 says this about your tongue and my tongue, because it's been contaminated by sin. He says in verse 13, their throat is an open grave. With their tongues they keep deceiving. The poison of asp is under their lips, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. This leads him to his third point. And a critical point it is. In your mouth is the power to direct your life. In your mouth is the power to do damage to your life and the lives of others. In your mouth is the power to determine life. Verse 9. With it, with our tongues, we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men who have been made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth comes both blessings and cursings. My brethren, these things ought not be this way. Does a fountain send out from the same opening both fresh and bitter water? Can a fig tree, my brethren, fellow Christians, produce olives, or a vine produce figs? Nor can salt water produce fresh. Our mouths and our tongues can do what nature can't even do. We can do stuff outside of the natural order of things. You cannot go to a water fountain and out of that one opening get fresh and bitter water. You'll get fresh or bitter water. You can't do that. You can't go to a grapevine and get figs. You can't go to an apple tree and get oranges, because nature doesn't operate that way. You get whatever it was designed to give. That's all. That's the way nature works. He says, but not the tongue. He says the tongue is so unique, it can contradict itself. Out of the same mouth comes blessings and cursings. Because a lot of the same folk who were praising God, when you get in that car with your family or somebody cuts you off, you're going to lose your religion. Wasn't that sermon good? You blankety blank better get out of my way. He puts it in biblical language. This ought not be. To put it in everyday language, that ain't right. He says that's a contradiction. That's moving two ways at the same time. He says you bless and curse. You're going in two directions at one time. That's called being double-tongued, like being double-minded. He says these things ought not to be. Why is it that way? Because hell lights the fuse of the tongue, because hell wants to control the life. But when God gets control of the tongue, God will have control of the course, the circle. And when God gets control of the circle, some of the things that are wrong will disappear, because he's controlling the bit in the mouth that controls the life and the 1,500-pound beast. When God created the world, he didn't wave his hand in the air like he just don't care. When God created the world, he didn't nod. No, when God created the world, he spoke. He said, let there be light. Let the land be separated from the water. All that happened in creation because God was talking. He was using his mouth, not his hands, not his neck, not his head. He was using his mouth. He said, let there be. When God wanted to explain Jesus to us in John 1:1, he said in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In verse 14, and the Word became flesh. When God wanted to describe Jesus, he talked about speech, the Word. When he wanted to teach Adam how to live his life, he gave Adam his Word, because Adam was created in the image of God. And since the image of God includes speech, Adam was given speech, something animals are not given. And so Adam spoke. Oh, but when Slick showed up in the garden, he started talking. And he started doing what God did. Why? Because he understood something we don't get. Proverbs 18:21, a scripture we will repeat throughout the series. Proverbs 18:21, Life and death is in the power of the tongue. You have the power with your mouth to kill you and other folk. You have the power in your mouth to give life to yourself or other folk, because you are created and men are created in the image of God. And when God speaks, life came. When the devil spoke, Adam and Eve got put out of the garden and death came, because the woman told Adam, Adam reacted and told God, and so you got all this talking going on in the garden. Satan wants to control your speech because he wants to control your life. But he says, if I get the bit in your mouth, I'll move the beast of your life. Because life and death has a power. And life and death's power is the tongue. If you and I get this straight, the circle of our lives will change.
Dr. Evans will come back in a moment with a great illustration to wrap up this message from his brand new teaching series, Watch Your Mouth. It includes today's lesson and 10 others, dealing with ways to use our words as instruments of healing, not weapons of war. It contains additional content we won't have time to bring you on the air, so check into getting a copy to review on your own or share with your church. All the details are waiting for you at tonyevans.org. While you're there, don't forget to check out that brand new book I mentioned earlier, also called Watch Your Mouth. It builds on our current series with life-changing insights into developing the self-control you need to keep your tongue in check. As I mentioned, if you contact us before time runs out, we'll send it to you as our thank you gift when you help us keep Tony's teaching on this station with a contribution of any amount. Make the arrangements today at tonyevans.org. Or you're always welcome to call our resource request line at 1-800-800-3222, where staff members are standing by 24/7 to help you. Again, that's 1-800-800-3222. Tomorrow, more from Tony's new series on taming the tongue, as he explains why the real problem isn't just what's coming out of our mouths, but what's going on in our hearts. You won't want to miss it. Right now, though, he's back with this final illustration to wrap up today's lesson.
Two frogs were walking one day, and unbeknownst to them, there was a big ditch that they didn't see, and both frogs fell into the ditch, and it was a deep ditch. So they're at the bottom of this ditch. So they figured, we got to jump out of here. We got to jump out of here because it's dangerous down here if we don't get out. So they do what frogs do. They started jumping, because they want to jump out the ditch. But the ditch was too high. They couldn't jump. They couldn't get that high. Some other frogs came along and saw their friends in the ditch. Hey, y'all, we're so sorry you're in the ditch. There's nothing we can do. We can't get you out of there. It's too far for you to jump out. So we just came to say goodbye. We love you. And just die easy. Just die easy. One frog gave up the ghost. The second frog kept jumping. They said, all you're doing is killing yourself. Give up. But he refused. To the shock of the frogs up top, he literally leaped out of the hole. So they went up to the frog, finally out of the hole, and they said to him, how could you do this? The frog looked at the group and said, I'm deaf. The only reason I hear you now is I'm close enough to read your lips. But when I was down in the ditch and saw y'all doing it, I thought y'all were encouraging me to keep jumping. You were waving your hand, telling me to jump. Some of us today are in a ditch. And some of us have got folk in our lives that are telling us don't jump. You need to be deaf to hell and keep your ears open to heaven, because God wants to lift you out of the pit you're in by what you're listening to, because life and death is in the power of the tongue.
The Alternative with Dr. Tony Evans is brought to you by the Urban Alternative and is made possible by the generous contributions of listeners like you.